Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Patrons video today that I'm making for Jacob Good as part of their custom monthly music review. And switching over to here, we have ourselves a track on the screen. This is an act by called Liturgy, titled Returner. Apparently this is black metal. I'm very excited for this. I do like my metal, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think I've listened to Liturgy before, but I'm keen to hear them for the first time. So without further ado, let's get into it. Listen through it from start to finish. Hear what we think. Let's go. Oh, the church bells immediately with some feedback. I love how colorful it is, and the audio quality is pretty dope as well. You don't always get that with black metal for reasons. I like the flexibility of the time signatures and the riff and how strange it is. The vocals are fairly authentic to the genre, to be honest. I'm not used to it being this majorish sounding, but I kind of adore the fact they're kind of mixing around with it a little bit. They're just kind of slapping in the face. Like I grew up with like Immortal and stuff like that, so this is a slightly different sort of direction, but that's cool. Or maybe it isn't, maybe I'm just tripping. Great to have that bass track in there. I think we got these high guitar parts. Oh. It's so uplifting and grandiose. Maybe I'm just tripping. I just love the A-B-A-B structure we have there. And I don't mind that we don't hear a story. The vocals at that higher pitch kind of shrieking range kind of sound more like a pad texture than anything like that. Blast beats. I was wondering when they were going to come in. Like you hear you know, it's just so much fun. I think if you can get past the shrieking and the lack of being able to sort of understand the story and the harshness of that, there is actually a lot of beauty in black metal. Seizure warning. Obviously, it's too late here. I might actually have to put a seizure warning in at the start of this, just because I have a feeling that will trigger some people. Not the snowflake trigger, but as in some people may literally have an epileptic seizure if they look at that. So I'm probably going to need to put a trigger warning at the start of the video. I feel like I'm going to have a friggin' seizure looking at that. That is just too much for me now. The crazy thing is that I can see that even with my eyes closed. Yay, no more of that, please. Again, like, I love the drums. Obviously, the drums are a focal point, alongside the tremolo pick guitar parts, the blast beats, and the double kick grooves, and the slams are just fantastic. You know, I've got no real complaints about those. It's funny because I think that even though I've told people that I like metal, I get a lot of people I think who are like, oh, but how heavy does it go? And it's not like I'm having a competition about it. Oh, that rubato feel coming down with the big slam. The tension, the grit, the drama to it. Oh, those higher frets. It's glorious, dude. Oh yeah, now that's a little bit too much for me, I'm gonna be honest. That's quite a lot of flickering for me. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have a bit of seizure warning at the start of this one. Wow, it's just done now. They couldn't help themselves. They had to have that at the end, dude. Panorama. Damn, do they have a seizure warning in this video? No, they don't. And this is my conclusion in my review of this track by Liturgy, titled Returner. What do I think this track is about? What do I think it's about? I think that this track, right? This track is about, I don't know. I couldn't understand the vocals, if I'm honest. I just couldn't. So maybe Jacob, you can help me out with that. I mean, if you could, that'd be great. What else? So I don't know what the track is about. The vocals, the shrieking was par for the course of black metal. Very sort of easy to identify. You know, it sounded great for what it was. You know, great technique, very solid. So no complaints there. The track hit like, you know, like it. I don't know what else to say about that. I don't know if he double tracked those vocals to make them sound wider, but they had great presence in the mix there, and it was very authentic. It would have been cool for them to have had captions. I think subtitles in this video would have been great, just so that you could follow along to what he was saying. Because I think maybe I just didn't listen closely enough, but I couldn't get those words. So having like captions on a video like this might be good, so that I can hear the extra story throughout. You know, the track itself at 3 minutes 53. It makes good use of the instruments involved. We had a bassist, we had guitars, and we had drums. The theme itself never sounded sad or angry or miserable or horrific or anything like that. It always sounded glorious, as if you were going through some big sort of spiritual awakening. The brightness and the glimmer and glitz of those guitar parts there with the massive high-end kind of like major triads and everything like that. It's kind of simmering down to melancholy occasionally, but typically ascending upwards, are fantastic and completely against the grain of a lot of the stuff I've heard within this genre. And I think that's fantastic. They're creating a carving and niche for themselves here, which I think is really important because, again, I had a look through the comment section below. The first comment is like, the drummer had me on the first listen. I just thought it was going to be blast beats the entire way. Which, to be fair, is a common thing in black metal. You do get blast beats a lot of the time. But no, we had different grooves here. We sort of like triplet, kind of we had triplet grooves there going on between the blast beat past that sort of crescendoed. And interesting sort of like kick motifs there and triplet 16th parts there, little buzz rolls, etc. And fun little fills going between sections there. When you to be sort of more in time with the rest of the band occasionally, like in those big sort of build bits where things become very kind of bright and shiny. But outside of that, the drummer kept pace really well. The bassist was that really necessary low end in this track, because I think that it just would have been a little bit too sort of like shrill otherwise, if that makes sense. You know, that part of that comes down to the tone of the guitar, of course, but also there was just so much high end. I've said high end a lot of times. The chords were in the upper register of the fretboard. I think that you just need a bass guitar to fill in that low mid range just to kind of make the track a bit bigger. It's just the best place for it. It would sound a little bit empty sounding, I think, and void of that sub bass or bass otherwise, even with the kick parts there. Because you can't have a kick drum that's too like kind of bombastic in a genre like this. It just doesn't sound great if you have a thick sounding kick. So kudos to them for knowing to kind of like have that bassist at that point there and fill things up like that. But yeah, no, the drums were absolutely sensational. The guitar parts were actually really atypical and pop fantastic to listen to. It wasn't, you know, I don't even know what kind of, I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, there were fun parts where things kind of got staccato-y a little bit. Bum, bum, ba-da-da-dun, da-da-da-dun-dun. You know, like things became in unison and kind of tightened up. Other parts, we just had a big wall of noise. There's lots of range within this track. We never slept too long on a theme there. And I think that was a really... I think for anyone wanting to listen to black metal that doesn't want their head caved in by a lot of the early stuff, they should probably start listening to Liturgy. So thank you to Jacob for introducing me to them. I can now have a band to show people who are interested in the genre, but again, are kind of a little bit sort of like ambivalent about it, just because of what they might have heard from other people. So I mean, like the bass performance was great. The guitars were awesome, and the drums were just phenomenal. Like the stick technique the guy had initially, I could see him doing like that, which is not great because that's a very weird wrist movement, and usually, but he was playing with his fingers, so it was fine, you know. So that was absolutely fine. The reason I say that is because very recently I learned that you actually need to have it like that, because that's a wrist movement. Obviously still use your like fingers and stuff like that, help with hits and like, you know, drum technique, but like whenever I see someone doing like that, you know, using the drum, like that's not an ideal wrist movement at all. It's kind of awkward, you know, but that's okay. Like the drummer obviously could play ferociously well, and it was very impressive to listen to. The studio recording, mixing and mastering was great. It was better than I expected from like, when someone tells me it's black metal, usually a lot of black metal musicians go for that kind of a rougher kind of tone. Having sort of a crystal clean kind of recording or performance there isn't always like super duper good, because it's not often seen, especially by elitists, as like being the real shit. Because it's a lot of the early black metal was recorded on like really not great equipment, and so it sounded harsh and horrendous and visceral, and that was actually part of the charm of it, is that it didn't sound overproduced. It was raw, and I think that these guys here found the midpoint between having like a commercial grade for its kind of genre recording whilst also not losing the essence of it, especially with the themes that they were playing there, the chord harmonies, the progressions choices they had there. It was more than just kind of, oh, hey, you know, I want to just like make a black metal album and kind of like join the dots and fill in the blanks. It genuinely felt as if they were trying to find their own sound whilst doing all this. So kudos to them. The recording quality of the vocals was fantastic. They were nice and bright without being too shrill. Nicely filtered on top of the guitar parts, the drums and the bass there. The guitar, even when it went up high, you could still hear the guitars clearly. I'm assuming the guitars were double tracked to get them on the sides there. The bass was nicely rounded and sort of controlled in the low end there, nicely compressed so that it kind of sat there and behaved itself. And there was dynamic range to the drum recordings without over-processing them, but when they came up, that bus compressor, whatever was going on, kept them in line. And just everything felt really nicely leveled. It was nice and wide in the stereo field, there were no weird resonances in the frequency spectrum. Again, there was dynamic range to this, and it was nice and loud without pumping. And effectively, this is my review of Liturgy and their track Returner. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show some love via their various social medias and a YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world, and I'll catch you in the next SP Patrons review. Spiderhands out.